So he is an oncologist by training. He did his medical college and everything in Chennai, and then went to England and he's been in a faculty with the University of Nottingham there, practicing oncology. But I, on the side, fortunate to us, so he's been also taking lessons and also giving classes in Tattvavada. So he's taking classes from from Prabhanjanachar and from Raghavendran, T.S. Raghavendran from Coimbatore. So he's been going to their classes, and now he himself has been giving satsang and then teaching classes in Upanishads and Gita over many years, and has about 20 plus followings that come to his class every week. So with that, so today he is joining us over the video on the occasion of this Jayatheertha Aradhana. So we have invited him to kind of share his few thoughts on this occasion. So with that, Madhuji, please take it over.
So thank you very much, GVG. Om Badram Karanebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Riyajatraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam Sastanubihi Vashema Devahitai Yadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vridrashravaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Tarksho Arishtanebihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Lasatu Srimadananda Tirtendurno Hridambare Yadvachaschandrika Swanta Santapam Vinikrantati Padavakya Pramanagnan Pranamya Shirasa Gurun Vyakarishye Yatabodam Vishnu Tattva Vinirnayam Chitraihi Padaishcha Gambiraihi Vakyaiर्मानैरखण्डितैः Gurubhavam Vyanjayanti Bhati Sri Jayatheertha Vak. So good afternoon to folks who are in Bindu Madhav ji's house. So I wanted to congratulate Bindu Madhav ji and of course GVG. I heard that Jayatheertha Aradhane has been going on every year for the past 30 years. So this is really amazing and wonderful. So I wish we could be there and join and celebrate Jayatheertha Aradhana in person with you all. Maybe next year, Haricha will be there in the US as a team to join you all to celebrate the Jayatheertha Aradhane here this weekend. So in Nottingham, we have a very good satsang, and every year we have various types of Vedic retreats. So this year, as satsangis, we have all joined here in the Peak District. So we are doing our satsangs for 2 days, just doing adhyatma, bhajans, and so on. So we are all very delighted. So we have quite a few satsangis here right behind me. And we are all very delighted that we are able to join you guys out there in Pennsylvania. So GVG asked me to share some thoughts on Jayatheertha, Sri Jayatheertha's Chinthana over 25-30 minutes. So I know you have highly learned speakers coming after me, and I really would like to thank GVG for asking me to go first. It's around 10:30 at night here, so will try to be awake and listen to other speakers as well, but I won't be long. So what is it that I'm trying to achieve here? Sri Jayatheertha Chinthana. Okay. So on this auspicious occasion of Jayatheertha's Aradhana, it is well worth our time for 25 minutes at least to think about who this exalted soul is. Okay. And no discussion of Jayatheertha can happen without having at least a brief glimpse into the life of Jayatheertha. Yeah. So what I've done is I've done a pie chart here of scoping out what is it that Jayatheertha has done in his lifetime. So we all know that Jayatheertha was on the planet for about 50 years. His sannyas ashrama was from 1364 to 1387. But before that, there was lots of interesting things in his life. So I just want to very, very briefly take you through this. You will have speakers talking about this after me. So the first 20 years, Jayatheertha had a different name, Dando Raghunatha Panta. And he was born into a Deshpande family, a family of Brahmanas who had to do some, Kshatriya administrative work. And for 20 years, Jayatheertha was a proper materialistic person, learning Shastra Vidya, Astra Vidya, and so on. Maybe some Adhyatma, but primarily Shastra Vidya and Ashtra Vidya. And we all know once he drives, he takes his horse, go to Bhima Nadi, and it is so hot. And the horse, as well as Jayatheertha, they are thirsty. And we have all heard that wonderful pastime where Jayatheertha, without dismounting the horse, he just drinks the water. And as does the horse. And then on the other side of the bank is Akshobhya Tirtha, the direct disciple of Srimad Ananda Tirtha. And he is there and he's observing this and he says, Kim Pashu Purva Dehe. And then Jayatheertha, everything comes back to his memory of what he was when Madhvacharya was around and what had he learned as an ox, carrying all the books of Acharya and going to all the pravachanas and so on. So we are all fairly familiar. But one of the key philosophical points that Gita talks about is whatever philosophical progress you do in this life, and when you leave this life, you pick it up where you left it in your next life. When you look at Jayatheertha's life history, it feels like he is actually doing what Gita has said. So whatever he left in his previous life as an ox, he picks up in this life and goes on. So that is a beauty of what we are told about the life of Jayatheertha. So what happened afterwards? So Jayatheertha, then Akshobhya Tirtha accepts him. There is a lot of other stories, other history behind it. We don't have to go into this. But the fact that we know from all the other, Jayatheertha Vijayas of various works is that Jayatheertha likely spent 5 years doing Adhyatma with Akshobhya Tirtha, his guru. You may ask, Jayatheertha is so knowledgeable, why did he have to do learning with his guru? For various reasons. One is to get his existing knowledge dhrida, and also to get new information, and also to show to people that Guru Sishya Parampara is always essential for spiritual progress. So for 5 years, he studies with Akshobhya Tirtha. Then he goes into silent contemplation for 12 years, and then he goes to Yaragola for 10 years, as you know, and that is where all his works begin. Yeah, and then he does all his amazing pieces of work for 10 years, and then he goes to Prachara for 2 years. He travels all over the world, all over India, south and north, and so on. He travels everywhere, and finally he gives, he makes his student, his guru, Sri Jayatheertha Tirtha, then takes footsteps from Jayatheertha and carries on with the traditions of our system. So Akshobhya Tirtha Guru, student Vidyadi Rajatirtha, then becomes the Sishya, then becomes the Guru and carries on with the Mata. So I wanted you to focus on this 10 years of Jayatheertha's life. It's incredible life. In that 10 years, he does 22 works of philosophical significance. These hold great philosophical significance not only in Tattvavada, but across the spectrum of philosophy. In fact, if you go to the History of Indian Philosophy by Surendranath Dasgupta from Cambridge, that was in the 19th century, he celebrates Jayatheertha so much in the third volume and describes, I wish I had known Jayatheertha early on in my philosophical life. I've never come across a piece of work that is so profound, and that is how he celebrates Jayatheertha, that is Surendranath Dasgupta from Cambridge. So Jayatheertha does 22 works. So when I looked at this number 22, and of course in our satsang we are always looking at numbers and philosophy in numbers, one should immediately understand that number 22 is a great philosophical significance. So just bear with me, my slides. Yes, there we have our slides. So number 22 has got great philosophical significance in Tattvavada. What are the significance? The Brahma Sutra Bhashya of Srimad Ananda Tirtha was the 22nd. 20th was the Mayavada's Brahma Sutra Bhashya. 21st was Visishtadvaita Bhashya. And the 22nd is the Brahma Sutra Bhashya of Srimad Ananda Tirtha. So that in itself has got philosophical significance. Then you have Jayatheertha, who has done 22 works. So when I was looking at number 22, obviously number 22 is a huge philosophical significance, because that is what the Tattvavada is all about, isn't it? Swatantram, aswatantram cha dvividam tattvam ishyase, as Acharya says in Sattva Sankhya. There are only two things in all of creation: independent entity and all the other dependent entities. So that is two. And then this relationship exists in two states, both in samsara as well as in moksha. So that is the other two. So when we look at 22, it basically summarizes the Tattvavada philosophy. And that is what Jayatheertha has done for us over 22 works. He's actually summarized the whole of Tattvavada philosophy that he has learned from his Acharya. So what is the broad scope of these works of Jayatheertha? Now, before we go into that, we have just done the philosophy of twos. What I want to introduce is the philosophy of threes. And I want to take you through over the next 7 or 8 slides talking about the philosophy of threes. Why is this important? For today's Chintana about Jayatheertha, I believe this is of very basic importance for us. Because there are only 3 entities in all of existence. Shvetashvatara Upanishad is very clear about this. There is the Nya, which is the Chetanas, there is the Agnya, which are the Jadas, and then there is the Deva, who is the Brahman. So these are the 3 entities that exist in all of existence that we learn from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. But then the understanding the relationship between these 3 is the focus of Vedantic philosophy. What is the relationship between these? Brahman alone exists. Matter and souls are unreal and actually do not exist, is one extreme view that comes from the Advaita or the Mayavada or the monistic schools of philosophy. Then there is the other view, which is the soul and matter are real, but they form the body of Brahman. And that this material world is a transformation of a part of Brahman. Okay? This is the Vishishtadvaita view about what is happening with the relationship between these 3. Then you have the other view, the Tattvavada view, which says Brahman exists, souls and matter exist, Brahman is transcendent and independent, the souls and matter are real and are ever dependent on Brahman. But Brahman is transcendent. He's got nothing to do with this universe. He is not this universe, but yet he is immanent and he is immanent and controls it, but primarily he is transcendent. So that is the Tattvavada view or the Dvaita view as it's popularly known as. So here we have a summary of the 3 overarching views of the Vedantic schools. So our founding father, the father of the Uttara Mimamsa, what we call as Vedanta, Vedavyasa, has done a lot of he has done Brahma Sutra to clarify all this. So Srimad Acharya gives us a direction here. Why is there this kind of discussion that is going and why do people have different views? And he says, Anadi kalato vrittaha samayahi pravahataha nachechodo asti kasyapi samayasyeti ato vibuhu. So Badarayana Sutrakara took it upon himself to do a section called Samayapada and discuss all the various philosophical systems so that the Sattvika Jivas can actually understand what is the right direction and they can attain their salvation. So the key there is these strands of Vedanta have always existed. The Advaita view, the Visishta Advaita view, the Tattvavada view, and all other, darshanas, the Shat darshanas of Vedanta, of Indian philosophy, they've all been there. But it is the Sattvika Jivas who have to somehow find the right direction and make progress in their life. That is why Vedavyasa takes upon himself to do all this bhashya, to do the sutras and many other works. So that is the role, that is the philosophy of the 3 with regards to all 3 entities in all of existence. So to give the direction for the Sattvika Jivas so that they can find their route towards salvation comes the philosophy of 3, which is the Munitrayam of Tattvavada. So that Munitrayam of the Tattvavada, of course, has Jagadguru, Madhvacharya, Anandatirtha, Purna Prajna. And then his greatest students, Jayatheertha and Vyasatirtha. So these three together forms the Munitrayam of Tattvavada, so that we understand the philosophy of three of all existence in the right perspective. So what we have here among these three Munitraya of Tattvavada is a thoroughgoing investigations of entities in existence. So that is what we are interested in, rather than rituals and other aspects of religion. They are helpful, but we actually want to go into the deep philosophy, because that is what is going to give us the route to salvation. So let's carry on, let's progress with regards to the philosophy of threes. So we have some key questions. And what I thought I would do is pick up three questions that are essential for our philosophical progress. What has Sri Jayatheertha done in his tikas following his guru? And take three questions. So let's stick to the philosophy of threes. So as I told you a few minutes ago, there is the Brahman, there is the Jivas, and then there is the matter. So there are various questions that can arise for a Vedantic philosopher. The first question: could the material world be a superimposition on Brahman? If the matter, if the universe is unreal, could this all just be a superimposition of Brahman? Could Nirguna Brahman become Jiva due to Upadhi? Could Brahman himself become Jivas? Could there be some entity that is superimposed on Brahman so that this world, the world of matter and souls, have come into being? Okay. Then the bigger question is Nirguna Brahman knowable? So these are all the views of the Mayavada on the one extreme. And what we are trying to achieve here is these three primary questions. How are we going to address using Jayatheertha's work as well as Srimad Acharya's work? Here comes another philosophy of three that I want to impress upon all of us here. Khandanatraya. Three core philosophy texts from Dasha Prakarana. So if we have not read Khandanatraya, my humble request is we have to do that first before even making an approach to any of the other works of Srimad Acharya or Jayatheertha. Understanding Khandanatraya becomes very important. A statement that I had from Prabhajanacharya about 15 or 20 years ago, when he told me, you have to read the Khandanatraya and understand the fundamentals. Without fundamentals, don't go to other Shastric items at all. So, these three questions that we just discussed: is Nirguna Brahman knowable? Could Nirguna Brahman become Jiva due to Upadhi? Could the material world be a superimposition of Brahman? These are all the topics that are taken by Khandanatraya of Srimad Acharya. So, what are those works? We have Upadhi Khandanam, Prapancha Mityatva Anumana Khandanam. Then you have Mayavada Khandanam. Okay. Jayatheertha, the greatest student of Srimad Acharya, does Upadhi Khandana Tika. He does Prapancha Mityatva Anumana Khandana Tika. Then he does Mayavada Khandana Tika, explaining what is it that Srimad Acharya has described in his work in great detail, so that mundane souls like us can actually understand the profound philosophy that Tattvavada has come about to establish. You may ask, let the other schools have their own views. Let the Mayavadins or anybody else have their own views. Why should we be bothered about it? Why should we be spending our time thinking about all this? Can we not just go on with our Tattvavada and carry on with the business of spiritual enlightenment? Can we not do that? The key answer to this question comes from Isha Upanishad. Vidyam cha avidyam cha yastad veda ubayang saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amrutam. So Srimad Acharya has told us again and again, the way in which he writes his work goes with the spirit of Isha Upanishad, that we should know what is true knowledge, but we should also know what is wrong knowledge or false knowledge. Knowing what is false knowledge is also true knowledge. Knowing what is true knowledge is also true knowledge. So there is two sides to this coin that we need to be very, very aware of in your spiritual progress. Why Isha Upanishad has described, isn't it? Avidyayam mrityum tirtva vidyayam amrutam. By knowing what is true knowledge, that knowledge of God and bhakti and grace happens, and you will eventually attain liberation. And also knowing what is false knowledge, you will eradicate ignorance. Ignorance is the root cause of samsara. So you will eradicate ignorance, thereby you will eradicate samsara. What is the classic definition of samsara? Birth and rebirth, birth and rebirth. So you will be able to get away from that by eradicating ignorance. So having that true knowledge as well as what is understanding what is false knowledge is very, very important in our system. And this kind of an approach will give us a very strong fundamentals that is essential for Vedantic studies. And what our Srimad Acharya and Jayatheertha have done is they've looked at Prapancha Mityatva Anumana Khandana. Srimad Acharya has done it, and Jayatheertha has done a tika for that. Mayavada Khandana, Jayatheertha has done a tika for that. Then you have Upadhi Khandana, Jayatheertha has done a tika for that. So we should use these three core texts, and then we should use Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya. And that is another most important work of Srimad Acharya. So these Khandanatrayas and Vishnu Tattva Nirnayas are the texts that needs to be mastered and understood by us. Once we have understood that, then perhaps maybe we may have an ability to even do Pravesha into Nyaya Sudha, Brahma Sutra Bhashya Tika, Tattva Prakashika, and all those bigger works. Maybe we could be able to approach that. So what I thought I will do is I'm just going to stick my next half of my presentation just to these Khandanatraya text, but just taking about the introductory verse of Srimad Acharya, of Jayatheertha. So that itself is fantastic. It's incredible how Jayatheertha in his Avataranika, that is in his introductory words, before he introduces what is it that Srimad Acharya is saying, he is giving us an introduction. And in my view, if we actually see these verses very carefully as to what Jayatheertha is saying, we will actually get the answers of what the Khandanatraya's scope is this. So these are really important and profound statements of Jayatheertha. So what I want to do is, without going into the deep philosophy of it, I just want us to have this chintana about the very beginning of his work and how amazing they are and how they address these problems. And of course, Jayatheertha did that sitting in this cave in Yaragala. So the first problem, is the hypothesis of Mayavada feasible? And is it a safe approach? Why do we have to have an issue with that? Why can't it just be a safe approach? And why just we let it go? Is the question. Is the hypothesis feasible? And is it a safe approach? Okay. To answer this, if you have to go to Mayavada Khandana Tika. So I'm not going to spend time talking about the details of it, but just the introduction. Ihahi vivida samsariko dukkha darshanena viraktasya shamadamadi mataha mumukshoho adhikarinaha तन्निवृत्तये परमानंद आवाप्ते च सकल जीव जडात्मकात् प्रपंचात् परमार्थता एव अत्यंत भिन्नम, and so on he goes on. Nirasta samasta dosham parabrahma pratipadayutum sakala shruti smrutinam tadupakarana bhuta cha brahmamimamsa pravriti riti tattvam. So that is the first paragraph. He says, we are seeing all this suffering. Who is a mimikshu? Who is an adhikari? And he is saying, aparetu swataha Parabrahma bhutasyaiva jivasya ajnana nimittam dukkadi tad advaita jnana nivartaniyatvam ato anartha hetor asya praharanaya atmaika, and so on. Sarvashastra rambaha iti varaniyantaha. He also gives an introduction as to what is the Advaita view. Advaita view is Atma and Brahma are the same, and because of the ignorance, somehow the Atma is forgotten, he is Brahman, so he is suffering. And the whole aim of Mayavada is to remind us the Brahmatma Aikya so that we can eradicate ourselves from the suffering. Here is the beauty of Jayatheertha in the Mayavada Khandana. Tanmatam apahritya swamatam samartayitum idam prakaranam arambamano bhagavan acharyaha paramamangalam narasimhastavana adav acharati. So this particular line in introduction. So the Srimad Acharya does the Mangalacharana of his work by actually praising Narasimha. Narasimho Akila Jnana Matadvanta Divakaraha Jayati Amita Sat Jnana Sukha Shakti Payonidhi Narasimho Akila Ajnana Mata. This is important because in all other works, Srimad Acharya has only said Narasimha Rupi. Of course, there is no difference between Narasimha Rupi and Narayana Rupi. But in all other work, he has only done Namaskara to Narayana Rupi. Whereas in this work, in Mayavada Kandana, Srimad Acharya says Narasimha. So our Jayatheertha is such an ardent student of Srimad Acharya that he takes that as a point. Why did Acharya take up Narasimha? And the reason for that is this. It is about Hiranyakashipu, isn't it? What did Hiranyakashipu say? Mad anyaha ishvaraha kaha. I am God. That is what Hiranyakashipu went and said. Who else is God apart from me? Mad anyaha ishvaraha kaha. That is the Mayavada view. And we all know what happened to Hiranyakashipu. So it is to bring home that truth about how dangerous this philosophy is, that it will actually lead to our destruction. It will lead us go to the Antatamas, is what the spirit of what the Mayavada Kandana is, and what is the Mayavada Kandana Tika is doing. And Jayatheertha reminds us as to why Srimad Acharya used Narasimha and not Narayana for this work, which is very, very interesting. So from this we understand we don't want to be like Hiranyakashipu. Madanyaha, Ishvaraha kaha. Don't do that, because that is what Mayavada philosophy is. The next problem, of course, is the created material world real or unreal? Is it mithya? Is it an illusion? Of course, the Advaitins differentiated between illusion and mithya. That is an entirely different question and problem. But is it unreal? And again, to answer this, our great Sri Jayatheertha in Prapancha Mithyatva Anumana Kandana Tika, in his introduction, Avatar, in his introductory notes, settles that problem very easily. We don't have to go into the deep philosophy of what is Sad, what is Asad, what is Sadasad, what is Sadasad Vilakshana, and so on. No, look at his introductory verse. Janmadhyasya yataha iti bhagavata sutrakarena jagat udayadi nimitta karanatvam parasya brahmano lakshanam abhihitam nacha jagat satyatam tad vastavam sambhavati. I will just stop there. Those two lines are profound because our Sutrakara, the founding father of Vedanta Darshana, has said, yes, of course, Om Atato Brahma Jignasa Om. Then therefore the inquiry into Brahman shall begin. Who is this Brahman? Our Vedavyasa has given a definition. Janmadhyasya yataha. He who is the creator of the universe and other aspects of creation. Eightfold cosmic dispensation. That is Brahman. Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. So, Janmadhyasya yataha is an important definition of who that Brahman is. Here is a problem if we assume that the world is unreal. See, here is the Mayavada, the guru of Mayavada, who we are told is a guru of Vedavyasa. He is actually going against the view of his Vedavyasa, his guru, by actually saying this world is mithya. This is like saying he is a great artist, but his art is false. This creation is an illusion or a mithya. Basically accusing Brahman of deception, defaming Brahman. Okay, so these are all the implications that unfortunately folks don't realize when they flaunt this philosophy saying that the world is mithya. They are actually doing this to Brahman. And we know from Kataka Upanishad what happens to such souls. Yeah. So assuming this world is mithya has got huge implications, and our Jayatheertha has actually brought home the truth to say why Janmadhyasya yataha of the Sutrakara is very important for us even before we go into the details of the philosophy. Let me give you a very simple equation that both Jayatheertha and Anandatirtha have given us, to a simple equation to refute mithyatva of the universe. Without going into the details, without going into the full discussions of this, here is a very brief, beautiful summary of what Jayatheertha gives. Okay, Vimatam mithya drishyatvat shukti rajatavat, like how the silver appears to be on a conch shell. Mithyatvam nama anirvachaniyatvam. Anirvachaniyatvam nama sadasad vilakshanatvam. So this universe is sadasad vilakshana. So what is sadasad vilakshana? Or Mayavada philosopher says, it is not sat, it is not asat, it is not sadasat, it is sadasad vilakshana. So they have come up with a rules. Satchet na badhyeta. That which is real means it is never sublated. Asatchet na pratiyeta. Asat is that which never comes to purview of knowledge. Asatchet na pratiyeta. Satchet na badhyeta. This is a definition of our Mayavada philosophers. Okay, so beautiful answer from Anuvyakhyana. Asadvailakshanyam gyaptaihi nyatavyam asadevahi, as Srimad Acharya says. And in Vishnu Tattva Niranaya Tika, Srimad Jayatheertha says, Apratitasya pratishedaha na yujyate. So what does that mean? Nothing can be denied without knowing it first. Okay, so the question that is put forth is, if you say this world is not asat, if you say this world is not asat, then you should first know what asat is. But according to their philosophy, asat can never be known. So if asat can never be known, how do you know that this world is different from asat? Okay? There is no answer. This is a very simple equation to refute the philosophy of Mithyatva that is brought out by our Mayavada friends. I am holding a pen here. I can say this is not a rope only when I know what a rope is. That is exactly the same example. If I say this world is not asat, then I need to first know what asat is. But according to their definition, asat never comes to the purview of knowledge. So it is that kind of a situation when they have said asat chet na pratiyeta, that idea falls down. So only when asat is known, it can be denied. So how can you say satchet na pratiyete? So that means you can never say sadasad vilakshanatvam. If you can never say sadasad vilakshana, mithyatvam nama anirvachanitiyam also falls down. So this is a very simple equation that our Acharya and Jayatheertha, apratitasya pratishedaha na yujyate. Then of course the big problem of upadhi. The monastic view is somehow Brahman, because of the influence of Upadhi, has become Jivas. Okay, so we don't have time to go through all this, but that Upadhi somehow has made Brahman split into Jivas of various types. What is that Upadhi, what is their nature, and so on is discussed in great detail in Upadhi Khandana and Upadhi Khandana Tika, one of the most beautiful texts. Our Jayatheertha in Upadhi Khandana Tika makes a resolute statement. If you want to have liberation, what is the first step? Paramatmano atyanta binnasya. You realize you are totally different. Not that you are actually Brahman. No, you are entirely different. He is infinitely different from you. You are entirely different. So that is your starting point. Paramatmano atyanta binnasya swataha chidananda kasyapi jivasya anadi avidya kama karma nimitta ayam paramartata eva, and so on, as Jayatheertha goes on. But there, that first statement is very profound, and of course that whole work refutes the Upadhi concept of Mayavada. Okay, so knowability of Brahman, I want to finish off with this. The knowability of Brahman is very important in Vedantic philosophy. You want to do some Shastra, you want to know, or you want to do philosophy about something only primarily if it is knowable in the first place. If something is knowable, then there is some sense in doing philosophy. If something is totally unknowable, what is the point in knowing philosophy or doing philosophy? So this is called Vachyatva versus Avachyatva. So the Tattvavada view there is the Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman are the same. Okay, they are only from different perspective that we all know. Saguna Brahman means infinite auspicious attributes. Nirguna Brahman means no material attributes. But from Tattvavada, it is very clear. Brahman is Vachya through the Vedas. We can know him through the Vedas. We can get Paroksha Jnana through the Vedas. And with his grace, eventually we can get Aparoksha Jnana. And we can know that Paramatma, who is as our Antaryamin. So he is Vachyatva from the Vedas. although limited as per our capacity. But you have a very interesting view of Mayavada, Avachyatva of Brahman. Nirguna Brahman can never be known through the Vedas. If some of us have not understood this, it is an interesting, a very powerful statement to make, but that is the position of Mayavada, that Nirguna Brahman cannot actually be known directly. He is not Vachyatva of the Vedas at all. Nirguna Brahman is only real. Maya Upadi is Saguna Brahman, which really does not exist. Nirguna Brahman is Avachya. Okay? So, Nirguna Brahman is essentially inexpressible and therefore not open to denotations, primary meaning, the Vachyatva of words of Vedas. As you know, Vachyatva of word has a meaning. That is the Vachyatva of that. So, the Nirguna Brahmana Mayavada does not have that. The scriptures can still give us some knowledge through a process called Lakshana Vritti. Through those Lakshana Vrittis, the metaphorical things that is used so much in the Upanishads, the Mayavadins or the monistic philosophers will say, no, only Saguna Brahman has Vachya, Nirguna Brahman is Avachya, but you can have some idea of the Nirguna Brahman through Vedas, through something called Lakshana Vritti. Scriptural passages yield only a non-relational judgment. Okay? So this is what our monastic philosophers say. Is this possible? If so, then if Nirguna Brahman is unknowable through the Vedas directly, then why bother? Why do we need to do all this? Now that is one point. The other point is, if Nirguna Brahman is unknowable, then how do I know that Brahmatma Aikya actually is there? You have to know that Brahman, right? Only when you know that Nirguna Brahman, then you can establish Nirguna Brahma Atma Aikya. But Nirguna Brahman is unknowable. Then how does one know Nirguna Brahman exists? If Nirguna Brahman is unknown, how can Brahmatma Aikya be established? So these are all some of the philosophical questions. But our Srimad Acharya and Jayatheertha Nyaya Sudha has given a master stroke. It is such a simple formula that actually refutes the Avachyatva of Brahman, Avachyatva Nirguna Brahman of Mayavadya, which in my view, everybody should memorize these verses. Sarva Shabda Avachyasya Lakshana Ayuktehe, Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Srimad Acharya. And our Nyaya Sudha Jayatheertha says, Vipratipannam na lakshyam kenapi padena avachyatvat vaidharmyena thiravat. So let me explain this and close today's talk. If an entity is utterly and absolutely incapable of being expressed by any word in any language, then such an entity forever should remain beyond the purview of Lakshana Vritti as well. Why? Jayatheertha gives an answer to that. Vipratipannam na lakshyam kenapi padena avachyatvat vaidharmyena thiravat. So this is the fundamentals of laws of thought and language, which our monastic philosophers have forgotten about. When I say Gangayam Goshaha, actually I mean Ganga Tire Goshaha, but I say Gangayam Goshaha because this village is it's a very sacred village, it's very cool, it's very beautiful, it's very nice, and it will give you all those ideas. We say that this village, this hamlet is on the river Ganges. No, by Lakshana Vritti we understand actually what it means is Ganga Tire Goshaha, that this hamlet is actually in the banks of the river Ganges. That is the Lakshana Vritti, right? Gangayam Goshaha. But what is the rule there? There is a word called Tira. There is a word called Ganga. There is a word called Tira. And only when there is a word called Tira, then you can do Lakshana Vritti. Only then a Lakshana Vritti is possible. This is the law of thought, fundamental law of thought and language, which is the monastic philosophers have forgotten. Yet they want us to believe that Nirguna Brahman can be known remotely through a process of Lakshana Vritti. Even for Lakshana Vritti, there has to be a name for Nirguna Brahman. Unless you know in a previous experience what the Tira is or the Nirguna Brahman is, you can never do Lakshana Vritti in any language. Okay? So this is the basic stuff that our Srimad Acharya and Nyaya Sudha Jayatheertha have asked us to consider before accepting an airy-fairy philosophy. Because from Mayavada Khandana we understand that if we accept that philosophy, we probably will face the same fate as Hiranyakashipu, Madanyaha Ishwaraha Kutaha. Okay, so these are all the various topics that our Jayatheertha, Sri Jayatheertha, the great student of Srimad Acharya, has discussed in various works. And finally, I want to finish off with another philosophy of 3. This time, 3 times 3 equals 9. What is that? It is the famous Prameya Navamalika by another great student of Acharya who can never stop celebrating Jayatheertha. In any work of Vyasatirtha, there will always be some celebration of Jayatheertha. And what did our Vyasatirtha say? Srimad Madhvamate Hariparataha Satyam Jagat Tatvato Bedaha Jivaganaha Hare Ranucharaha Nichocha Bhavangataha Muktihi Naija Sukha Bhaktiri Amala Bhaktishta Tat Sadhanam Hekshadi Tritayam Pramanam Akila Amnayaika Vedyo Harihi. So in the Prameya Navamalika, the 3 times 3, we get the entire tenets, the 9 tenets of Vedic philosophy, Tattvavada philosophy, that Jayatheertha in all his works, which is 22, that establishes the Tattvavada, which is 2, is summarized so beautifully by Jayatheertha. So on that note, I really would want to thank GVG and Bindu Madhavji for actually asking me to share some ideas of Jayatheertha. And I hope these last few minutes I was able to impress some of the profound philosophies of Jayatheertha. And even in his Kandanatraya introductory texts, he actually gives us the direction with regards to how to approach these kind of problems that come in our philosophical journey. And the more we study Jayatheertha, with, of course, the Bhashya to hand, the more we have a chance of actually following that path of Shreyas that Yama has taught Nachiketa, so that eventually we attain liberation. So on that note, thank you very much, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Krishna Pranamastu. So I'm going to close today's lecture. So I'm not sure, GVG, if there would be any questions. If not, I might stop sharing the slides. So over to you, GVG. Thank you very much.
Second. Okay. You can see me or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you, Madhuji. So it was a wonderful lecture as always. So especially with your PowerPoints, you touched upon so many things, Ananatraya, and then and then other Upanishads and then other ones. So very exhaustive and a lot to digest. So I'm sure that since it's already late for you and then also late for us too, so a lot of people want to go home. So we will just keep the and then we will keep the question and answers. You are welcome to free to kind of and then kind of stay and then listen to the other lectures, or if not, if it is, I understand it's too late for you.
Yeah.
So I want to sign off.
Yes,
We understand.
GVG, I think it's about it's getting to 11:15 here, so I think we'll take rest. Thank you very much, everyone.
One
And
second,
Hare Krishna,
I'll
take
just
care.
I'll just give it to our friend Janardhan.
Yeah.
He wants to say about the Putika Mata in London. 1 second.
Yeah.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಜನಾರ್ದನ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರೋದು.
ಹೇಳಿ.
ಕುತ್ತಿಗೆ ಮಠ ಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಲ್ಬಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರೆ?
ಇದು ಲಂಡನ್ ಹೊರಗಡೆ they've just opened ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ I've just heard. ಇನ್ನೂ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಪರ್ಚುನಿಟಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ವಿಸಿಟ್.
ಖಂಡಿತ ಹೋಗಿ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಈ ತರ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾನು, ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಯೋಗೀಂದ್ರ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ದನ್ನ ಜಿವಿ ಹತ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ, ಆ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಇದು. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಆದಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೆರಡು ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್. ಹರೇ ಕೃಷ್ಣ.
ಶೋರ್. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Thank you, sir. So we will sign off then. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
for making your time. I know that it's been late, so we have all kinds of trouble. We were running late in the
No
kind of
problem.
first one, and then we had some internet audio video
Yeah.
issues.
No
So
worries.
thanks for your patience.
No worries.